Hello everyone. Today we are going to start with the next chapter of statistics for economics, that is organization of data. In the previous two chapters we studied about the first stage of statistical study, that is collection of data, from which you came to know about that how the data is collected, and the data can be collected either in the form of the census method or by using the sample method. Now in this chapter we will study about the second stage of statistical study, that is organization of data. Because after the collection of data we need to organize the data so that we can make out the best conclusions out of the data collected. So organization of data refers to systematic arrangement of collected figures or raw data so that the data becomes easy to understand and further analysis may be possible. So therefore in organization a systematic arrangement of data is made of the collected figures, which is also known as raw data, because the further processing is still to be done in this data. So the data becomes easy to understand. Basically the organization is done so that to make the data more easy to understand, as well as to further analyze the data to draw out conclusions from the data collected. So this is the main objective of the organization of data. And this organization can be done with the help of the classification of data. Now what is classification of data? It is a part of organization only in which the things are arranged in groups or classes on the basis of their similarities. That is, classification of data is a process in which the various things or the data which has been collected is arranged in various groups or classes on the basis of their similarities. That is, the similar things or similar items are grouped into one class, which will show that this particular class includes the items of particular similarities. So this is the main motive of the classification of data. For example, I have collected the data related to the students of a particular school, but still I don't know that who are the students of which particular class. So firstly I need to classify the data or classify the students of a particular school, maybe on the basis of their class. For example, I will divide the students among various classes like class 10 students, then class 12 students, or class 11 students. So this is how I will classify or organize the data collected of various students, which will make the data more easy to understand, and the analysis will also be made easy with this type of classification of data. The main objectives of the classification of data is, the first one is simplification and briefness. So the first and the main objective of classification of data is to organize or present the data in a simple form and make it brief so that it is easy to understand and the conclusions can be drawn out in a simple manner from the data organized. The second objective is utility. Now according to this objective, the main motive of classification of data is to make the data collected more useful by knowing about the similarities of the different characteristics of the data collected. The third objective is distinctiveness, in which we will come to know about the various differences which are there in the data collected. The fourth one is comparability. Because of the classification of data, we will be able to compare the data collected on the basis of the various parameters. The fifth objective is the scientific arrangement. As with the help of the classification, we can arrange the data in a scientific manner, which will further increase the reliability of a particular data. Because without a particular arrangement of data, we will not be able to know about the various similarities or the distinctiveness or differences in a particular data. And the last objective is attractive and effective, which means that classification makes the data more attractive in appearance and as well as more effective, because of which we can effectively make out the conclusions from the arranged data. So these were the main objectives of the classification of data. Now here are some characteristics of a good classification, that is, if we are classifying the data on the basis of various classes or groups, what characteristics or what features must be there for a good classification. The first one is comprehensiveness, which means that each and every item of the data must get into some group or class, that is, no item must be left out or no item must be there which has not been identified among the various classes. So this is the first characteristic of a good classification, that is comprehensiveness. The second one is the clarity, which means when we are classifying the raw data into various classes, it must be clear and simple in nature so that there may be no confusion about the placement of any item in a group. That is, we must be very much clear about which item is placed in which group. The third one is homogeneity, which means that the items which we are placing in one group must be homogeneous in nature, or they must have the same quality or same characteristics. It must not be like a one group is having the items of different characteristics. So therefore there must be homogeneity. The fourth one is suitability, which means when we are classifying the data, that classification must be based on our objective of study. For example, I want to know about the marks scored by the students in their previous grade. But instead of organizing the data on the basis of their grades or on the basis of their marks scored, I am collecting the data on the basis of their weight and height. So this is not a suitable form of classification. That data must be classified on the basis of the marks scored by the students, which will be more suitable. The next characteristic of a good classification is stability, which means that the basis on which we are classifying the data must not be changed with each investigation. That is, the groups or classes which we are making must be stable in nature and they must not change. This point you will come to know about when we will do the basis of the classification. And the last one is elastic, which means that when our objective of study or the purpose of our study is being changed, the groups must be able to change. That is, they must be elastic in nature according to our objective of study. So these were all the characteristics of a good classification, and this point we will study under the next topic, that is basis of classification of data. So this was all about our today's video, in which we studied about the organization of data and its main important method, that is classification of data, along with that its objectives as well as the characteristics of good classification, that is what features must be present in a classified data to make it more reliable and more beneficial for the investigator to analyze that particular data. And also it is the second stage of the statistical study after the collection of data. That is, when we will collect the data, after that what we need to do is to classify the data or organize the particular data. So this was all about today's video. I hope all of you understood what I have explained you today. Thank you so much.